You go into your shower feeling, but as soon as you reach for the Irish Spring, your day immediately gets better. That crisp, fresh, unmistakable Irish Spring scent zings your brain and awakens your senses. So when you finally emerge from the shower, 37 minutes later, because you pay the water bill so you can stay in there as long as you want, you're ready to take on the day and smell great doing it. Irish Spring Body Wash and Bar Soap. Fresh, green, Irish. Shop now at Walmart.
From hobby farmers to weekend gardeners and everyone in between, Tractor Supply trusts 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to make shopping more personal. Together, we're connecting over 2,200 stores with 5G business internet and powering AI so team members can match shoppers with products faster.
You're all set.
This is enriching customer experience. This is Tractor Supply with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Welcome into a Week 5 Giants Hangout brought to you by Crestron. My name is Madelyn Burke, joined by Russ Salzberg and Brandon London. And guys, we are 25% into the season. The Giants are 1-3, coming off a competitive loss to the Cowboys. But Russ, when you look at the quarter mark of the 2024 season, what is your takeaway so far of this Giants team?
Well, we're 1-3. I say the Giants are 1-3. They very easily could and should be 3-1, but as Bill Parcells would always say, you are what your record says you are. And listen, they need to improve. I mean, they need to, as far as I'm concerned, I've seen improvement in this team. I have seen improvement in this team. I like what I've seen, from the offensive line pretty much. I like what I've seen from Daniel Jones. We all are in love with Malik Neighbors, and well, we should be. But there just has to be more, I don't know, maybe I call it attention to detail. I've seen far too many drops from receivers. I've seen Devin Singletary, put the ball on the ground. And I love Motor. I am glad he's a Giant. I love his attitude. I like the way he runs. But you got to clean all that stuff up. And I think if they can clean that stuff up, if that would have happened during these first 4 games, we would be 3-1 instead of 1-3. But as we say, your record you are what your record says you are. Is there room for improvement? There most certainly is. But I think we've seen light at the end of the tunnel. I think this team can improve, and there's reason to believe that it can improve.
Yeah, it's almost like it's been an extended preseason for the Giants. If you look on the flip side of it, the teams that are 3-1 or undefeated, they're catching those balls. They're holding on to the football, not turning it over. So, Russ, when you say the Giants could be 3-1 and they could be 2-2, and we could give them, let's say, a C grade, we still have to mark them as a D plus at that first quarter of the season, because you still look at having 15 sacks on the defensive side of the football. Dexter Lawrence, and you have a third-level defender, Jason Pinnock, both have 3 sacks on the season. So when the run game gets going, a Motor Singletary was able to run for 95 yards against the Commanders, and then the following game, in the win against Cleveland, run for over 100. But then again, those B pluses, those A minuses get negated by the Fs and the Ds in terms of putting the football on the ground and not catching the football. So you have to flush that first quarter of the season, that first marking period, and then we got the next 4 to look at in terms of the halfway mark. But it all starts out in Seattle on Sunday.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Excuse me. Coulda, woulda, shoulda doesn't get the job done.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That sounds nice. It rhymes well. It sounds sexy. It doesn't get the job done. They got it. Not they could, would. They need to get the job done.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned big game in Seattle on Sunday, of course. Giants are kind of coming off a mini bye, a 10-day stretch between that Thursday night football game against the Cowboys and this Sunday afternoon game against the Seahawks. Seattle, of course, on a short week, they played Monday night in Detroit, and we saw on full effect what Seattle has to offer. I mean, Kenneth Walker, the third, 80 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns on the day. But of course, Geno Smith airing it out. Geno leads the league in passing yards right now. And this, 3-headed monster of DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith and Jigba is a real threat there. And it's going to be a significant challenge for these young defensive backs with a lot of questions. Of course, Adoree Jackson, Drew Phillips, missed that Thursday night game against the Cowboys due to injury. If they are healthy enough to play, Brandon, as a receiver, what do you see from this three-headed monster that Seattle has to offer that is going to be such a challenge for this Giants defense?
I would be honest, if I'm DK Metcalf right now and some of the plays that I put on tape on primetime football, I'm looking at every Giants corner as I'm circling putting a dollar sign, by his name, because this could be a get paid game for him. I'm wondering though, Russ, how defensive coordinator Shane Bowen approaches this game in terms of getting after Geno. If you can make him kind of move off of his spot, rattle him a little bit, that could take a ball off target a little bit when it comes to a Tyler Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba. So, but in terms of receiver wise and being in a receiver room, if you're one of those guys from the Seattle Seahawks, you're looking at you could put up some plays. But I wonder, like, if Shane Bowen, because he's going to have to kind of I don't want to say like save coverage or save some of his players, but is he going to blitz like he did Deshaun Watson, or is he going to kind of play back like he did Dak Prescott? How is he going to treat Geno Smith, who, even though he leads the league in passing, Russ, he still only has 4 touchdowns on the year, and that's tied with Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with you. I was thinking about that last night. They got to get after Geno. I mean, listen, Geno threw, what was he, 38 for 56. He had 56 pass attempts. That sounds good, or maybe it looks good, but you don't want your quarterback passing, 56 times. And, part of that reason was, it was a shootout. What was the final score in Detroit? I think it was 42-29. Brandon, we always talk about complementary football. Offense has to help defense. Defense has to help the offense. One thing about that Seahawks team, they can be scored upon. And now we want to see, listen, the offensive line of the Giants has done a very good job in pass pro, but they need to, open up. Listen, we had a bad game. What was it? 26 yards against the Cowboys on the ground. So that doesn't get it done. That was very, very disappointing, especially, I think you mentioned it. There was one, or Madelyn may have mentioned it. One game, Motor had 95 yards. The next game was 65 yards, whatever it was. So, yeah, we got to the pass pro has been there, and I think it will be there. The other thing that I'm worried about when the Giants have the ball, as you well know, that's a rough crowd. And, penalties hurt the Giants last game. We do not need that happening this game. We don't need to help the other team. And we've done that a bit too much.
Right. Well, and Brian Daboll has said, hey, we're going to be practicing with noise. We're going to be practicing the silent count. We know this is no secret that going into that environment is a hostile environment. As you mentioned, Russ, it's going to be loud. The 12s are out there. They're a supportive fan base, and the Giants are going to be doing what they can to prepare for it. You mentioned the offense's ability to produce against the Seahawks defense. Of course, on Monday Night Football, we saw not only Detroit put up points, but Jared Goff going 18 for 18, a perfect game, didn't miss a single completion in that game. There is some opportunity there for this Giants offense to execute, but they're going to have to put points on the boards. And we saw in weeks 2 and 3, they got in the end zone, right? They had 3 touchdowns in each of those 2 games. Week 4, they really struggled to close it out. They've struggled, especially in that red zone area. And so, Brandon, when you look at the way that the Giants played in weeks 2 and 3, and then comparison to, week 1 and week 4 and the inability to score there, what is the biggest difference that stands out to you?
I think they need to hit on the short passing game. They've shown that they're not going to throw the ball deep just yet, or, you need to hit that. They haven't connected on the deep ball. So then if you're struggling in the run game, the short passing game becomes an extension of that. You have a Wan'Dale Robinson where you use on the jet sweeps, orbit motions. I think Brian Daboll gets even more creative this week when it comes to that, maybe having some sort of backside screen attached to that to see if you can get a back or a second level defender with bad eyes. I think that's just going to have to be a part of it. You don't know what Malik Neighbors is going to be able to bring to this game, but if he will, you may have to spread them out, use the Jalen Hyatts to now create some sort of space when it comes to the running game and those motions. But at the same time, being able to get the ball out of Daniel Jones' hand very fast and getting it and putting the pressure, not so much the pressure on the Daniel Jones, but giving him the opportunity to put the ball in places that's advantageous for the receiver for catch and run. This is going to have to be a big catch and run game. And my thing for the noise up in Seattle, they should look at some CFL tape, Russ, because when I was in the CFL, we would be in like the Saskatchewan, 69, 70,000 out, and we'd be it would waggle motion, but everything would be on hand movement and hand movement and just being able to sign things to each other. So that's going to be, again, you can't let that Seattle crowd kind of dictate a turn a 2nd and 6 into a 2nd and 11 off of a penalty. So I think they should look at some of that in terms of their hand movements and signals, because that can help kind of neutralize some of that noise out there.
Right, and just a quick point of clarification too, Malik Neighbors, for the Giants fans who don't know, he did leave week 4 with a concussion. He is in the protocol. We will be monitoring that injury as the game gets closer, and seeing if he is available. But, you know, between him and Wan'Dale Robinson, Wan'Dale second on the Giants, 38 targets on the season. Giants are the only team to have multiple players with 35 or more targets on the season. So they are heavily reliant on the passing game and extremely heavily reliant on Malik Neighbors, who's got the 2nd highest yardage, not just of rookies, but of receivers in the NFL so far this season. So it could be a significant one to monitor. Russ, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, a couple of things. By the way, Brandon, I couldn't agree with you more, because maybe you don't know this. Mike, I spent 4 years starting my career up in Canada watching the Toronto Argonauts.
Oh, really? Okay.
And let me tell you, you are 100% right with that whole hand motion. 100% right. And those crowds, they may not be as big as NFL crowds are, except maybe for the Grey Cup, but they're raucous, and you're 100% right. That was an excellent, excellent point. A couple of things I want to talk about. Both you people just touched on it. Well, you had both guys, Malik and Wan'Dale, each getting double-digit targets. You know, I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, they each had double-digit receptions. So like Dave said, you're not going to get 3 guys with double-digit receptions. That's one. On number 2, what Brandon brought out, I happen to really like the way they've been going, the Giants, with the short game. And there's been some criticism, not so much criticism, but how come you're not getting the ball downfield more? I would like to see that as well. But at the same point, I don't have a problem with the short game, but it's how we opened up the show today. That short game is fine, the short passes, as long as everybody is catching the ball. There's been too many drops, not just long passes. There's been too many drops. And that's something, you know, you look at it one game, okay. You look at it a couple, okay. Enough. We got to hold on to the ball. These guys are good receivers. They have to hold on to the ball.
And that breeds the confidence within the receiver room. So now when you catch a 12-yard curl route or a 5-yard under, like you see the Giants run a lot, you catch it, or you've been catching some harder throws and targets, that confidence gets going. It's like Mario Brothers when you get a couple little mushrooms and turtles in you, you know, you start to puff your chest out a little bit. Now you catch an under, you break a arm tackle. Now that 5-yard catch turns into 15, or it could turn into a 22 or 50 with the speed that they have out on the perimeter in this Giants offense. So if I'm Jalen Hyatt, this is that opportunity to where you've kind of done a good job of kind of saying the right things in terms of wanting to get in there if Malik Neighbors can't go. But the Darius Slayton's, Wan'Dale, you know you're going to get your double digit targets. The Darius Slayton's and the Jalen Hyatts now catching, like, be ready to catch and run. And you've seen Darius Slayton do that before. You've seen him not only go over the top, but you've seen him catch like a little hitch or like some little drag route and turn it up against the Texans a year or two ago. So it's there for the taking within this Giants receiver core. And I know Mike Grove personally. He coached with my father, and he played with my uncle at UVA, my Uncle Paul. So I know he's telling the guys, like, hey, if we're going to go out there, it's going to have to be a game where we're going to have to take over, and don't be pretty, don't be shiny, don't be sexy, go out there, be gritty, because gritty's going to make some big plays on a Sunday.
Hey, you say don't be sexy, but I know one person who's got a note on that, and that's Dexter Lawrence, 97.
I just threw you that oop, Madelyn. I just threw you that transition.
This is teamwork right here. This is 9 years of teamwork right here. But sexy Dexter, I mean, we've talked a lot about the Giants offense and the needs we want to see from this Giants offense on Sunday afternoon in Seattle, but the defense going against Seattle's offensive line, which ranks 31st in both pass block win rate and run block win rate. Geno Smith has been pressured at the 10th highest rate in the league, which is a surprising amount considering the passing yardage, again, leading the league in passing yards. When you look at the way that this Giants pass rush has had their ebbs and flows so far this season, and it's had some success, but again, last week we saw, they did get to Dak Prescott in week 4. They Kayvon Thibodeau had a sack for an 8-yard loss, the first time they had sacked Dak Prescott the Giants had since 2021. So being able to get pressure on the quarterback, but this week, with a guy who is so evasive and who is able to keep plays alive and get out of the pocket and continue to do that, what kind of a challenge does that pose for this Giants defense and this Giants pass rush in trying to pressure this quarterback, Brennan?
I say treat him like Cleveland. Shane
exactly.
You went after Deshaun Watson. Like he went. I didn't know Shane Bowen blitzed that much. I thought Wink Martin.
He doesn't. He usually
into the booth, but then they backed off of a Dak. So like you said, Russ, if we're gonna equate Geno Smith to a tier, we don't have him on that pure. I don't have him on that pure passing level as a Dak Prescott, but I think he's better than a Deshaun Watson when it comes to throwing the football and spraying the football. But at the same time, get after him because again, you're gonna have to mask a little bit when it comes to your secondary up against a receiver core like that. But hey, Brian, we want to see spiders. We want to see sexy Dexies. And whatever Kayvon does from time to time, he does Victor Cruz, but you want to see it. We want to see it. I want to be sitting there looking at the game, emceeing the Giants watch party at McMahon's in Brooklyn, McMahon's Pub. I want to be able to be emceeing that and seeing the fans that come out there doing those dances. Because if the pass rush, again, I'll put pressure on the receiver core to win this game or be a big reason, but the pass rush has to be there as well because you gotta rattle Geno somehow, some way.
Brandon, I'm glad you brought up the Browns game because I use this expression. They came out, listen, they were really mad. They knew they should have won the game against Washington. They knew they should have won that game. And they came out real angry. And I used an expression that they used to use in the fight game. When you punch, when you hit somebody, you want to hit with bad intentions. Now, they don't want to hurt anybody, but when I say hit with bad intentions, you want to go after that person. And the Giants defense came out with bad intentions when they faced the Browns. They have to come out with that same bad intention attitude facing the Seahawks and going after Geno Smith. When I say bad intentions, again, not hurt him, but be mean. Show the defense. Show an attitude. Show that enough is enough. Let's take care of business. Madelyn, you mentioned ebbs and flows. Well, enough of the ebbs. Let's take more of the flowing. Where we say them, if we had more flowing and less ebbing, the Giants might be 3-1 instead of 1-3.
I mean, couldn't have said it better. More flows, less ebbs. Let's do it right here. Week 5, the Giants are headed to Seattle, facing the Seahawks. Afternoon slated games. We'll be covering it. We'll be monitoring it all week with Giants.com, Giants Social, all of our platforms. For Brennan London and Russ Salzberg, I'm Madelyn Burke. Thanks for hanging out with us on Week 5 Giants Hangout, brought to you by Crestron. We'll see you next week.
You go into your shower feeling, but as soon as you reach for the Irish Spring, your day immediately gets better. That crisp, fresh, unmistakable Irish Spring scent zings your brain and awakens your senses. So when you finally emerge from the shower, 37 minutes later, because you pay the water bill so you can stay in there as long as you want, you're ready to take on the day and smell great doing it. Irish Spring Body Wash and Bar Soap. Fresh, green, Irish. Shop now at Walmart.